Welcome to DFC on the Green for the Shell Houston Open. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Chris Etherington. Taking a look at DraftKings picks for cash and GPPs. Obviously, coming off the match play tournaments, you and I avoided any content for that just because of it, a little bit chaotic. It's a little bit kind of a toss up.
Yeah, I said in the article that it was just basically too high a variance just to try and figure out what's going to happen. For example, for the top 16 seeds, I think 11 of them, I believe, failed to make it to the weekend. And then by Sunday, you only had two of them, which was Justin Thomas, I believe, and Alex Noren. But no one. It was the percentage having four guys in on Sunday was like less than 0.5% or something like that. It was crazy numbers. Like you had more people having 0 of 6 guys hitting for the weekend than people having 4 of 6 hitting into the weekend. Like it was just crazy, and that's just one of the reasons why we didn't do it last week. It was just too random. You just didn't know what was going to happen day to day. But yeah, congrats to Bubba on his second win of the season.
Yeah, and it's Bubba's gearing up. You and I we were talking Masters a little bit ahead. We'll have that pod out, over the weekend. Looking at this week, though, it's interesting because, you and I were kind of talking about this top tier before, hitting the record button. And, we kind of feel like a lot of these guys are a little bit overpriced just because of kind of how they're playing this season. And because the field is a little bit weaker in terms of like the middle tier here and the lower tier, that these guys are kind of overpriced. I feel like the only kind of guy that's justified as far as price goes and play is Justin Rose and probably Mickelson. Out of these guys that I feel maybe the most comfortable using. Because outside of that, I mean, Fowler hasn't been spectacular this year. Spieth, Stenson, kind of a smaller profile as far as what we got. Obviously, it was a great finish out of him at the Arnold Palmer, but these guys are overpriced, and I think you were kind of in a similar agreement. Just one, from your cash game pick, starting with list here, like you're okay with not looking at these top guys.
Yeah, with I'll just say right off the bat with Liz, Berger, and Rafa being right there, it's a really good argument towards fading the top guys. Phil has gone on to say that he's just using this week to tune up for next week, just because some of the, I guess, line sight on the tee boxes are similar to Augusta, and some of the shots around the greens are similar. So that's what some of these guys are going to do. They're going to just really tune up their game for next week. They might not say it on camera, but I think they just don't really care too much of winning this week. I mean, if they ended up playing well and they win, I mean, that's just kudos for them. But I think this week you can just argue fade the top guys just because you really don't know if they're actually here to win or if they're here like Phil is to tune up his game for next week.
Yeah, and I don't mind looking down some of these secondary options here. And, I think ownership's going to be interesting this week because of that top tier, trying to kind of break that down. Will people play Fowler, given that he's 11-5 and hasn't played like an 11-5 player this year? Will people ride the Rose hot streak? Will people look at Mickelson, who's been playing well this year, or Stenson or Spieth? And you kind of look around the industry right now. It's Tuesday evening, and we're seeing a lot of guys kind of look at some of these second tier players as their top options. So I think ownership's going to be pretty spread out. I can't see anyone being drastically overowned.
No, and we were looking at it earlier, and I think I said it, and I think that Fowler and Mickelson should really swap their place in the price. Just like you said, I mean, with Fowler's form hitting into this week, it's not that great, and Phil's been more consistent than he has recently. And given his course history, I think Phil is a much more safer option than Fowler is. So I think you're right with the ownership. I think Phil will be the highest owned in the top tier, but overall it will be spread out. And I'm just going to go down to Liss, who's been knocking on the door for a win. He's made his last like 6 straight cuts with a couple top 10s in there. And if you look at his stats, I mean, he's 5th in the field for off the tee, 5th in the field for par 4 scoring. So with that in mind, and if you look at his course history, he finished 3rd here last year. So I think at 9,600 for Liss, I think that's a really good start for your cash game lineups this week.
Yep, I agree with you. And you're also looking at Berger. It was just a couple hundred cheaper. Usually Berger's a GPP play for me, but I definitely don't mind him in cash this week. And I think he's obviously a guy who has strong potential to post a top 10 here as well.
Yeah, he's surprisingly having a really solid season so far this year. I mean, if you look back at the Hero, going way back to the Hero, he only has 1 missed cut, and then I think it's out of like 7 starts, he's had 5 in the top 15 finishes this season. And then if you look at his course history, I mean, he's finished 5th twice in a row in the last 2 years. If you pair him up with Liss, I mean, that's a really good start for your cash lineup this week. You can't really go wrong, and it's kind of hard to beat that lineup, I think, come to the weekend. Right now, for me, it's almost a 50-50 between those two for my one and done this week.
Yep. And I kind of feel similar about some of the other options, like in this range. Like, I like RCB at 9,300. I'm comfortable with him in cash and GPPs. Henley should be rather popular. I think Finau is always going to gain some ownership. We just need a recorder and record ourselves once for Finau, and then we can just replay it back because it's the same thing every time. But I think he's interesting at 9K, especially coming off a cut at Valspar. Have a couple of weeks off. I think he's interesting here.
Yeah, he's been kind of like Berger in a sense, having a really good season so far. When he's made the cut, he's been having a little run and might get inside the top 20, maybe a top 10. If you look at his course history, I mean, it's okay. He missed the 1 cut in 2016 and finished basically in the middle of the field in the other 2 years. But yeah, Finau is just that guy, like we've been saying all year so far, is that he just needs to putt average and he might have a shot. The good part for this week is that it seems that the bad putters might have a slight edge because these greens are more pure than most courses. Like a lot of people will make a lot of putts inside that 10-foot range. So I think for Finau at 9,000, yeah, I'm not going to say it's an auto play, but it's pretty close. And with Henley, yeah, he's just going to be one of the more popular plays because he's won here before. He's the defending champion, and people just seem to like Henley this week with his form coming in.
Yeah, I agree. And, I just think like one of the reasons I kind of look at some of these options, like, if you're looking for GPP pivots, it's kind of tough to get in here and like make a true difference and be a statement maker of some sorts. But it's weird. Like I like all these guys somewhat evenly. I think the only guy that I'm not too fond of is Kucher at 9,100. And usually I don't mind him. I just don't like paying 9,100 for him.
Yeah, and I am a little superstitious, as some people might know. He is enter curse this week, so be aware if you want to play him. He's just at 9,100. I mean, he's not the safe Kucher that we like to see out of him this year. I haven't seen it yet where he's an auto play. Just play him and bank top 10, top 15 finish. He hasn't showed that quite often this year. I really don't know what it is with him. I think for my pivot is going to RCB. Rafa has been playing fairly well entering this week. I mean, if you look at his course history, yeah, he missed the cut here last year, but he finished fourth in 2016. And at 9,300, with him being ranked first in the field for par 5 scoring, I think he's going to be a nice pivot, given the fact that he's in between List, Berger, and Henley.
Yeah, I agree definitely with that. What do you like in the 8K range here? Usually it's a spot that I'm kind of fond of. I feel like it's kind of been like that for the last few tournaments. This week, not so much.
Yeah, really the only guy is the guy that I wrote up, and that's Grillo. I think Grillo is really the only, I wouldn't say a safe option, but I mean, he's a much better option than some of these guys in this range. I know people are going to play Keegan Bradley just because of his course history here. And I think with Grillo, with his stats, I mean, he's sixth in the field for proximity. He's ninth in the field for off the tee. I mean, at 8,500, he's going to give you that upside where he may get you a top 10 finish. And with his stats being relatively good entering this week, he has no course history here, but I think this course kind of suits him a little bit. And I think with his recent play, he's going to be one of those dark horse picks, I think, for this week. I think he'll play well.
What are your thoughts on like Duffner here? Sort of interesting. I mean, he was top 15 last year. I had a hot start to the year and then it's kind of cooled off a little bit. It's still been decent. He isn't scoring a ton, but I think he's kind of interesting, like out of the names here in this range. Like all these guys kind of give me a similar feeling. Like you got Bug Colley, who's kind of a boomer bust option. Like Bill Haas is usually a guy that's somewhat consistent, but that's kind of fallen off this year. Like a lot of guys I just haven't been playing really to start the season in this 8K range.
Yeah, going back to Duffner, I think if you look at his course, more of a ball striker's course, I mean, that's usually Duffner's MO is ball striking. I mean, his stats are okay. He's been playing okay, but I think he's a little too expensive for my liking. And with Bill Haas, I think he's still recovering from that car accident he had back in LA, where he lost one of his good friends in that accident. So I'm just avoiding Bill Haas until I see something that clicks for him, because he is one of those consistent ball strikers year in and year out. We're almost, I want to say like old Matt Kuchar in a way, where you play him and you kind of have a sense that he will make the cut and might give you the top 20. But right now, I think he's just trying to find his game after his accident.
Ryan Palmer in that same price range, I think he's an interesting GPP option. Won't touch him in cash games, but there is some upside with him. We've seen a couple top 20 finishes this year out of him. he is such a boomer bust guy. I guess I don't mind him in GPPs. Like, it's kind of hard. Like I said, it's hard finding that kind of pivot to make in tournaments this week. And I think I look at Palmer. I think he can be that, but I still think the ownership is going to be there. But I'm just kind of hoping it's not as high as what I think it will be.
Yeah, he does have that top 10 finish here back in 2014, and it does seem that Palmer is healthier than he was last year. But I don't mind Palmer at 7,900 just because like he's 7th in the field for off the tee. He's 21st in the field for par 5 scoring. So at Palmer, I don't mind that price at 7,900. I think people will play him just because people know the name. But yeah, he shouldn't be too high in ownership. Probably 13% at most. I don't see it going higher than that.
And like, I mean, there's a couple other options like in this range. You know, Peters, Kirk, Piercy. You got McGirt right there, all kind of in that 7,500 range. I think, you know, a couple of those guys are definitely viable. I know you're looking at Piercy and GPPs this week. I kind of don't mind, like, if you're adding a cash game guy in this range, I don't mind Kirk at 7,500 as well.
Yeah, if you look at Piercy, he's just, I think I've said it before this year, where he is just your typical GPP option. He'll either give you a miscut, or if he plays well, he'll give you that top 10, top 15 finish. I mean, entering this week, he's first in the field for strokes gained approach the green. He's 13th in the field for par 4 scoring, and he's 15th in the field for birdie or better percentage. So I don't mind that, and he's played here twice in the last 5 years, one being a 10th place finish in 2015 and a 19th finish in 2016. So Piercy at 7,500 is a good number for him. Only a tournament option, like I said, just because he might give you that miscut. For Chris Kirk, yeah, I'm totally with you. He's just that consistent guy, almost like some of the other guys that we just mentioned, where you can almost bet a made cut and then maybe a top 20. If you look at his stats, I mean, he's 11th in the field for par 5 scoring and 26th in the field for birdies or better gain. Yeah, I think Kirk is your good cash game option because you know what you're going to get, and Piercy is your excellent tournament option this week.
Yep. Before we get to a guy that you're looking at here, Harkins at 7K. Anyone you like in between? Like, you know, Kokrak stands out 7,300. Even after missing the cut at the Arnold Palmer, I don't mind going back to the well on Kokrak at that price. I think 7,300 is pretty fair.
Yeah, he does have decent stats entering this week. I mean, he's second in the field for par 5 scoring, which doesn't surprise me coming from Kokrak with this distance. He's actually 13th in the field for off the tee. So I think for him being at 7,300, I don't mind him as a tournament option. Going down further, I kind of like Streelman. Kind of like Kirk. Streelman is that consistent player. Like, you know, you're going to get consistent results out of him. And I mean, if you look at his course history, yeah, he's missed 2 cuts here, but he's also made 2 cuts in the last 4 years. But at 7,200, you're just hoping for him to make the cut and then maybe a top 30, top 25 finish out of him. And that's usually what his game is right now. That's all you hope for.
We talked about James Hahn the last time on the pod. This time at 7,100 here, like, he's another option I don't mind going with as a cheap guy. Like I said, I mean, obviously didn't play well at the Arnold Palmer, where I think we talked about him quite a bit. You were kind of off of him more so than on him. But just out of this range, like there isn't a lot to go with in the 7K range as far as kind of safety goes. So like I think Hahn's a decent cash game option at 7,100. And I will say I think he is still viable in GPPs at that price.
Yeah, I think this is when the ownership starts to spread out more. Yeah, I think I said Hahn was like a trap the last time out. And he kind of was. He barely made the cut, and then he really didn't do much on the weekend. I want to say he finished near the bottom of the field, if not dead last. I want to say he was pretty close to that. But, I mean, his stats are still good. I mean, he's 5th in the field for birdie or better percentage. He's 5th in the field for strokes gained approach the green. So, I mean, if you want to take a flyer on James Hahn, I don't mind it. Only a tournament option for me at 7,100, kind of like where Streelman is. You're just hoping for a made cut, and hopefully he does something on the weekend, not like Arnold Palmer where he just shits the bed and it's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to get a paycheck this week no matter what I do.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I go into the pods. First 15 minutes, I'm fired up, and then I get my paycheck in the last 15, I'm done.
Yeah, I think that's what happens to some of the guys that make it to the weekend. It's like, okay, I'm going to get my paycheck no matter where I finish. Let's just move on.
Yeah. And then we get to your guy Harkins here. You mentioned your article, 7K, and you've been a Harkins guy a couple times this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really – there's really no reason for me not to go back to him. I mean, he's been more consistent than most of these guys down here. I mean, if you look at his stats, he's 10th in the field for par 4 scoring, and he's basically in the top, I would say, top 35 in the field for the other stats that I'm looking at. Yeah, he doesn't have any course history here, kind of like Grillo, but I think with Harkins, the way he's been playing, he's my safe option down here for tournaments, but also even if you can make an argument for cash games as well. He doesn't have that many missed cuts this season, and yeah, he's just been playing well, and it doesn't seem like his price is going higher anytime soon.
Was there anyone lower that caught your eye?
The only other guy that I kind of like down here would be Tom Hoge, just because he seems to be hanging close with his irons. He's 2nd in the field for proximity, and yeah, his course history is not great. He's been basically near dead last the last 2 timeouts he played here, so completely a tournament option, obviously, but I think Hoge for me at 69 is the lowest I'm going this week.
That's going to be it for us. Who do you got winning this week?
I mean, right now the odds have Berger just slightly better than Luke List, so I think I'm going to go with Berger this week.
I like it. I'm going to take RCB right there.
Yeah.
We got this show. I feel like there's definitely a little damper of an atmosphere with the podcast this week because we're just so ready for the Masters.
Yeah, I got the next Thursday and Friday and the following Monday off from work. So it was come Wednesday night. Next week is just going to be basically Golf Channel, just getting prepared to what's coming and getting excited for your lineups. And then come Friday afternoon, you're just sweating. Hopefully all 6 guys are going to make it for the weekend.
Yeah, you're either giving up or you're ready for the weekend.
Yeah, it's basically like that. You're just all excited up until Thursday morning when you see all your guys not playing well, and then by that weekend he might make a profit. But that's usually how it goes.
That's why I like the British Open so much, is because I wake up and I already know where I'm going to be at. You know, it's 9 o'clock. I wake up and I'm like, well, my lap's already dead. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, and you have to wait like an hour or two for the Masters, and then from there he's like, well, my guys don't even tee off in the afternoon. What do I do in the morning?
Yeah. It'll be fun. I'm excited. We'll be recording that Masters pod over the weekend and getting that up. You can check out Chris's GPP and cash game article for the Shell Houston Open up on the site now, and we'll see you guys soon.